Do you remember a time when the world was lit from within? Not just beautiful, lit, as if everything, the grass, the morning sky, the sound of water, carried a secret light that only you could see. And do you remember when that light began to go out? Not all at once, slowly, so slowly you barely noticed, until one ordinary morning you looked at a field or a flower or a rainbow and thought, it used to mean more than this. William Wordsworth noticed this feeling, and he spent 11 years, from 1802 to 1815, writing the greatest poem he ever wrote, trying to understand it. The ode, intimations of immortality from recollections of early childhood. Today we are going line by line through this poem, and I warn you now, this is not an easy poem. It will ask something of you. But what it gives back is one of the most profound philosophical visions in English literature. Wordsworth believed he knew why that light goes out, and what, if anything, remains when it does. So let's find out. If you have already watched our video on Tintern Abbey, you know the broad outlines. But let me fill in what is specific in this poem. Tintern Abbey was written in 1798, in a single day, at the age of 28. It was a young man's poem about a young man's transformation, full of energy, full of confidence, even its sadness. The Immortality Ode is something else entirely. Wordsworth began it in 1802. He was 32. He had recently married Mary Hutchinson. His great friendship with Coleridge was beginning to fracture. And most devastatingly, his brother John, a sea captain, the sibling he was perhaps closest to, would drown in a shipwreck in 1805. Wordsworth didn't finish the ode until 1806 and didn't publish it until 1807. These are not background details. They are inside the poem. The grief is inside it. The question of whether joy can survive loss is not theoretical. It is personal. And there is one more piece of context you must have. The poem carries an epigraph, 3 lines from Wordsworth's own earlier poem, My Heart Leaps Up. The lines are, the child is father of the man, and I could wish my days to be bound each to each by natural piety. The child is father of the man. Turn that over in your mind. We normally say that parents raise children, that adults shape what comes before, but Wordsworth reverses the arrow of time. The child you once were is the origin of the adult you became. The child precedes and preconditions everything. And if the child knew something that the adult has forgotten, then the adult is, in a crucial sense, impoverished by growing up. This is the seed of the entire ode. Now let's talk about the philosophy behind the poem, the pre-existence of the soul. Before we read a single line, you need to understand the philosophical idea that structures this poem. Because it is ancient and it is strange, and without it the poem won't make complete sense. Wordsworth is drawing on the Platonic doctrine of pre-existence. In Plato's Phaedrus and Meno, Socrates argues that the human soul existed before birth, in a realm of pure forms, eternal ideas, perfect truth and beauty. When we are born, we forget that prior existence. But learning for Plato is not the acquisition of new knowledge. It is recollection, the soul remembering what it already knew. Wordsworth takes this idea and makes it romantic. He says infants arrive in this world still trailing the light of their prenatal spiritual home. They see the world with a glory, a celestial brightness. That is the residue of where they came from. But as they grow, as the world socializes them, as habit and custom pile up, that original light fades. By the time we are fully adult, most of it is gone. He's careful to say explicitly in a note he wrote later, that he did not literally believe in the pre-existence of the soul as theological fact. He's using it as a philosophical metaphor for something he felt to be true. That childhood carries a quality of perception, a luminousness of experience that adulthood cannot fully preserve or explain. The question the ode wrestles with is not, where did the light go? The question is, can we live well in its absence? What remains? And keep that question with you as we read. Now let's come to the poem. So I'll read you few of the lines and then you can read the poem in the full sweep by yourself. So let's start with stanza 1 and 2, which talk about the lost glory. Let me read the lines. There was a time when meadow, grove and stream, the earth and every common sight, to me did seem apparelled in celestial light, the glory and the freshness of a dream. Look at this line, apparelled in celestial light. What a precise word, apparelled, not just lit, it's clothed. The world wore celestial light the way a person wears a garment. The light was not projected onto things from outside. It was intrinsic to them, inseparable from them, their very appearance. And notice what kinds of things carried this light. Meadow, grove and stream. The earth and every common sight. Not sacred places, not cathedrals or temples. The ordinary world, a field, a brook. The light was everywhere, accessible to the humblest pair of eyes. And then these lines. It is not now as it had been of yore, the things which I have seen I now can see no more. The opening movement is devastatingly simple. It was. It is not now. No explanation yet, just the bare fact of loss. Like waking up to discover a familiar sound has stopped and only realizing by its absence how much it meant to you. Now stanza 2 deepens the wound. Let's look at these lines. The rainbow comes and goes, and lovely is the rose. The moon doth with delight look around her when the heavens are bare, waters on a starry night are beautiful and fair. Notice what he's doing here. He's not saying the world has become ugly. The rainbow is still lovely, the rose is still lovely, the moonlit sky is beautiful and fair. The world has not changed, he has changed. Or rather, the way he receives the world has changed. This is a crucial philosophical distinction. The ode is not a lament for a world that has deteriorated. It is a lament for a mode of perception that has dimmed. The glory was never in the object. It was in the meeting between the object and the child's soul. When the child grows up, the meeting changes. The object remains. The soul changes. And the glory, which existed in the space between, is gone. Now look at these lines. But yet I know wherever I go, that there hath passed away a glory from the earth. One of the most quietly devastating lines in English poetry. Passed away. Not gone violently, not stolen, passed away, like a fever breaks, like a tide recedes, gently, inexorably, without drama. Just gone. Now let's come to stanza 3 and 4, where the poet is taking this effort to rejoice. Look at these lines. Now while the birds thus sing a joyous song, and while the young lambs bound as to the tabor's sound, to me alone there came a thought of grief. It is May, it is spring, everything is celebrating, and into this universal joy, to me alone comes grief. The word alone is key. He feels singled out by sadness. Everyone else seems to participate naturally in the world's gladness. He stands about, watching, unable to fully join in. And then these lines. A timely utterance gave that thought relief, and I again am strong. This is one of the most debated lines in the poem. What was the timely utterance? Scholars have argued it refers to the poem My Heart Leaps Up, the very poem from which the epigraph is taken. The idea that even in adult melancholy, the heart still leaps at a rainbow, still carries some residual animal response to the world's beauty. That small involuntary leap is the utterance. It is enough to push the grief back. Now these lines. Ye blessed creatures, I've heard the call ye to each other make. I see the heavens laugh with you in your jubilee. My heart is at your festival. So you see, he tries. He reaches toward the joy. My heart is at your festival. Not my mind, not with analysis or intention. He's trying to let his heart lead him back to participation. And for a moment, he almost succeeds. But then, look at these lines. But there's a tree of many one, a single field which I have looked upon. Both of them speak of something that is gone. The tree, the field, perfectly ordinary, and yet something is gone. There's a specific tree, a specific field that he has known and loved for years. And now, even these most particular, most intimate pieces of landscape speak not of presence, but of absence. Of what used to be there in the encounter that is no longer. And these lines, whither is fled the visionary gleam? Where is it now, the glory and the dream? This is the great question of the ode. It's not rhetorical, it's genuinely desperate. Where did it go? And the stanza ends here in open, unanswered grief. Wordsworth does not rush to comfort us. He holds the question open. He makes us sit with it. And that is right, because this question cannot be answered quickly. It requires the rest of the poem. Now let's look at stanza 5, which gives the vision of pre-existence. Look at these lines. A birth is but a sleep and forgetting. The soul that rises with us, a live star, hath had elsewhere its setting, and cometh from afar. Birth, asleep and forgetting. Extraordinary. We normally think of birth as awakening, as the beginning of consciousness. Wordsworth inverts it. Birth is a kind of forgetting. The soul arrives having already known something, and the act of entering the world causes it to forget. A live star hath had elsewhere its setting. The star, the soul, rises here in this life, but it's set somewhere else. It has a prior existence. It comes from afar. And then these lines. Not in entire forgetfulness and not in utter nakedness, but trailing clouds of glory do we come from God, who is our home. Trailing clouds of glory. This is perhaps the most famous image in the poem, and rightly so. We do not arrive empty, we do not arrive wiped clean. We arrive still carrying, like mist clinging to a traveler returning from the sea, something of where we came from. And that something is glory. From God, who is our home. Wordsworth places the origin not in a theological heaven exactly, but in a home, a place of belonging. Infants, he says, still feel that belonging. The world is new to them, but the quality of being, the sense of being held, welcomed, loved by existence itself, that they still carry from before. Yes, and this line, heaven lies about us in our infancy. That exclamation mark is earned. It is a cry of recognition and of grief, because the exclamation already carries with it the knowledge of what is coming. Shades of the prison house begin to close upon the growing boy. The prison house growing up is a narrowing, not because the world is cruel, but because consciousness itself, as it develops, begins to categorize, habitualize, routinize. The child who saw every leaf as a miracle becomes the adult who sees a tree. The naming of things is also the forgetting of their mystery. But notice, shades, not walls. It closes gradually and at first. But he beholds the light, and whence it flows, he sees it in his joy. The boy still sees the light, dimly but truly. He still has access to the source. The youth, who daily farther from the east must travel, still is nature's priest, and by the vision splendid is on his way attended. The east, the place of rising, of origin, of dawn. As we travel through life, we move west, away from our source. But the youth is still attended by the vision. The light has not yet gone. He's still, in some sense, a priest. still officiating at the altar of natural beauty, still experiencing the world with something of its original radiance. At length, the man perceives it die away and fade into the light of common day. The light of common day. Those 4 words are among the most melancholy in all of Wordsworth. Not darkness, not ugliness, just ordinariness. The world remains lit, but it is the ordinary light of an ordinary day. The excess, the gleam, the glory, the something more that has faded. The man can see, he just can no longer see into. And then we come to stanza 6, where the earth acts as a consoler. Look at these lines. Earth fills her lap with pleasures of her own, yearnings she hath in her own natural kind, and even with something of a mother's mind, and no unworthy aim. The homely nurse doth all she can to make her foster child, her inmate man, forget the glories he hath known. This stanza is easy to misread as accusation. Is Wordsworth blaming the earth for making us forget? No. Look at the language. Mother's mind, no unworthy aim, homely nurse. These are words of warmth, not condemnation. The earth is doing what a good mother does, trying to comfort a child who is grieving for something they cannot name. The pathos is exquisite. The earth offers her own pleasures, sunsets, harvests, friendship, work, love, to help us bear the loss of other pleasures, the ones from before. She is in her way kind, but she cannot restore what we have lost. She can only offer substitutes. And she does so with no unworthy aim. She is not deceiving us. She is mothering us. There's a difference. And then we come to stanza 7, where we see child as actor. Look at these lines. Behold the child among his newborn blisses, a 6 years darling of a pygmy size. The tone shifts here, tender, almost amused. A 6-year-old, tiny, beloved, lit with the consciousness of his own new world. See at his feet some little plan or chart, some fragment from his dream of human life shaped by himself with newly learned art. A wedding or a festival, a mourning or a funeral. The child plays at being adult. He stages weddings and funerals, the great ceremonies of human life in miniature. He's imitating, practicing. This is utterly natural and beautiful. But then, as if his whole vocation were endless imitation, here is the philosophical weight. The child, in imitating adults, is already on the path away from his original self. Each imitation is a step toward custom, toward the prison house. The child is, in his innocent play, rehearsing his own spiritual diminishment. Wordsworth does not say this cruelly, he says it with a kind of helpless tenderness. This is what growing up is. We cannot wish it away, but we can see it for what it is. And then stanza 8 is the apostrophe to the child. Thou, whose exterior semblance doth belie thy soul's immensity. The child looks small, its body is small, its vocabulary is small, but its soul, Wordsworth insists, is immense. The child has access to depths that the adult has closed off. Thou, best philosopher, who yet dost keep thy heritage, thou eye among the blind. The child is philosopher, the child is seer, eye among the blind. We, the adults, are blind, not because we lack experience, but because experience has overlaid the direct vision of childhood with too many learned responses, too many habits of perception. The child still sees directly. Haunted forever by the eternal mind. The child is haunted by eternity, not burdened, haunted. The eternal is still audible in the child's silence, still present in their unconscious being. And then, mighty prophet, seer blessed, on whom those truths do rest, which we are toiling all our lives to find. We spend our adult lives pursuing, through philosophy, religion, science, art, the truths that the child simply is. Without effort, without language, without even knowing it. The child does not seek truth. Truth inhabits the child. And then comes the most painful turn in the poem. Why with such earnest pains dost thou provoke the ears to bring the inevitable yoke, thus blindly with thy blessedness strive? Why are you in such a hurry to grow up? Why do you run toward the very thing that will diminish you? The child strives eagerly, naturally toward adulthood, toward the yoke of custom and habit and worldly concern. And in doing so, it fights against its own blessedness. Not from malice, blindly. The child cannot know, no one can tell them. We all rush toward what will cost us most. And then, full soon thy soul shall have her earthly freight, and custom lie upon thee with a weight, heavy as frost and deep almost as life. Heavy as frost, deep almost as life, custom, routine, habit, socialization will settle on the child with the weight of winter. It will be so deep, so pervasive, it will feel like life itself. And that is the tragedy. We mistake the prison house for the world. Stanza 9 is the turn where Wordsworth talks about what remains. O joy that in our embers is something that doth live, that nature yet remembers what was so fugitive. The embers, not the fire is gone, but in the ash and the cooling coals something still lives. There's still warmth, still light if you look closely enough. Nature remembers, the world still holds something of that original glory, not in its full blaze, but in the memory of it that lives in our adult encounters with beauty. The thought of our past years in me doth breed perpetual benediction. Perpetual benediction, a blessing that does not end, nor for what was most immediately wonderful about childhood, the delight, the liberty, the careless joy. He's not blessing those, he's blessing something stranger and harder. Look at these lines. But for those obstinate questionings of sense and outward things, fallings from us, vanishings, blank misgivings of a creature moving about in worlds not realized. The obstinate questionings, the moments every child has them of sudden, inexplicable vertigo, when the world seems briefly unreal. When you look at your own hand and wonder, what is this? Who am I? Why is there something rather than nothing? Those unsettling, vertiginous moments of childhood metaphysics. Wordsworth says those are what he blesses, because they were the first imitations of depth. High instincts before which our mortal nature did tremble like a guilty thing surprised. The child trembles before its own highest instincts, like catching a glimpse of something vast, not threatening exactly, but overwhelming, beyond the self. But for those first affections, those shadowy recollections, which be they what they may, and are yet the fountain light of all our day, are yet a master light of all our seeing. Shadowy recollections, not clear, not certain, shadowy like memories of memories, echoes of a light we cannot quite recall. But here is the claim, those shadowy recollections are the foundations of all our seeing. They are the fountain from which our adult capacity for wonder, goodness, love, all of it ultimately flows. We may not remember the source, but the source is what makes the river possible. Uphold us, cherish, and have power to make our noisy ears seem moments in the being of the eternal silence. Our entire adult lives, the noise, the ambition, the suffering, the love, the loss, all of it compressed into a single moment in the being of eternity. This is not nihilism. It is perspective. The eternal does not negate our lives. It contains them. Truths that wake to perish never, which neither listlessness, nor mad endeavor, nor man, nor boy, nor all that is at eternity with joy can utterly abolish or destroy. This is the poem's declaration of resistance. The light can fade, the gleam can dim, but it cannot be destroyed. Something, some essential truth that the child perceived remains indestructible, even if you cannot access it directly. Even if you live in numbness or despair, it is still there at the bottom of things, waiting. Hence, in a season of calm weather, though inland far we be, our souls have sight of that immortal sea which brought us hither. We are far from the sea now, far inland, far from our origin. We are grown, we are settled. The ocean of eternity from which we came seems distant and unreachable. But in moments of calm, not ecstasy, not transcendence, just calm, we can see it again. Not reach it, not return to it, just see it. And that seeing is enough. And see the children sport upon the shore and hear the mighty waters rolling evermore. The children still play on the shore, still close to the sea, still close to the origin. We watch them from inland with love and with a recognition that has been the entire poem. Now, coming to stanzas 10 and 11, where he talks about acceptance and what remains. Then sing, ye birds, sing, sing a joyous song, and let the young lambs bound as to the tabor's sound, we in thought will join your throng. Return to the spring, return to the birds and the lambs from stanza 3. But now we in thought will join, not as participants fully in thought, with imaginative sympathy. We cannot be children again, but we can think with them. We can move alongside the joy without pretending we still inhabit it directly. This is not resignation, it is a hard-won, honest, mature form of participation. What though the radiance which was once so bright be now forever taken from my sight? Though nothing can bring back the hour of splendor in the grass, of glory in the flower, we will grieve not, rather find strength in what remains behind. Splendor in the grass, glory in the flower, and then nothing can bring it back. He does not lie to you. He does not tell you that if you meditate long enough or live purely enough or pray hard enough, the original light will return. It will not. He says it plainly. It is forever taken. And then the turn. We will grieve not. This is not denial. He has grieved for 10 stanzas. He has grieved honestly, completely, without shortcuts. And then only then he says, not more grief. Instead, strength in what remains behind. What remains? He gives us a list, and it is not a consolation prize. It is a richer, harder, deeper set of gifts. In the primal sympathy which having been must ever be, in the soothing thoughts that spring out of human suffering, in the faith that looks through death, in years that bring the philosophic mind. The primal sympathy, the basic human capacity for compassion, for feeling with others, which was first awakened in childhood and cannot be destroyed. Soothing thoughts that spring out of human suffering, the wisdom which is born out of pain, not despite suffering, but from it. The adult has something the child does not, the knowledge of what loss feels like, and that knowledge generates a deeper tenderness toward others. The faith that looks through death, not around death, not away from death, through it. A faith that has been tested, has faced mortality and still holds. The philosophic mind, not cold philosophy, not intellectual detachment. A mind that has been seasoned by experience into something that can hold complexity, hold paradox, hold grief alongside joy without being destroyed by either. Thanks to the human heart by which we live. Thanks to its tenderness, its joys and fears. To me, the meanest flower that blows can give thoughts that do often lie too deep for tears. The last 2 lines are among the most celebrated in all of English poetry. The meanest flower that blows. The humblest, most ordinary wildflower at the roadside. It can give the adult, the philosophic, grief-seasoned adult, thoughts that lie too deep for tears. What does that mean? It means beyond weeping, not numb, far beyond numb. There are experiences of beauty and loss and recognition that are so deep they cannot be expressed even in tears. Tears are for what can be partly externalized. These thoughts cannot be. They live in the body, in the soul, in the place where language stops. The child experiences the world with glory. The adult experiences it with depth. Both are real. Neither is superior. But the depth, earned through loss, it is own form of seeing into the life of things. So we come to the end of the poem. There's a peculiar kind of sadness that visits us in the middle of life. Not depression, not grief over any specific loss. Just a quiet, steady awareness that something luminous has gone from our experience of the world. That we are somehow farther from things than we used to be. That the rainbow which once stopped the breath now merely prompts a photograph. Wordsworth lived with that sadness for 11 years while writing this poem. He did not resolve it by pretending it wasn't real. He did not transcend it by finding God or love or success. He moved through it, slowly, with full philosophical attention, and came out the other side with something more valuable than the original light. He came out with depth. The Intimations Ode is not a poem about loss. Ultimately, it is a poem about inheritance. The child leaves us a bequest, not the gleam itself which cannot survive the journey into adulthood, but the capacity for a certain quality of experience. The primal sympathy, the thoughts too deep for tears, the ability to stand before a meadow and feel, even in its ordinariness, the faint echo of something vast. We are, all of us, living on the interest of what childhood deposited. We spend it in tenderness, in art, in the love we bear for other people, especially for children in whom we recognize, with a pang and a smile, something we have almost forgotten but have not quite lost. The child is father of the man. The light the child saw is light by which the man, however dimly, still sees. That is enough. It has to be. And somehow, inexplicably, stubbornly, it is. So if this poem moved you or troubled you, this is the correct response. Wordsworth did not write poems to comfort us cheaply. He wrote them to take us somewhere real. For further reading, I recommend The Prelude, Wordsworth's long autobiographical poem, which deepens everything in the ode. And if you'd like to hear a wonderful philosophical echo of these ideas, read Proust's In Search of Lost Time, which pursues the same question about the recovery of lost experience through a very different form. If you missed our video on Tintern Abbey, watch it next. These two poems are in conversation, and understanding them together is far richer than either alone. Leave a comment. What was the line that landed hardest for you? I always read them. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.